Sir Roger. It's a pleasure to serve your chairship. Stalking is a form of psychological violence that will affect approximately 1 in 5 women. It's an insidious crime that can shatter lives. I've heard from victims of stalking who feel trapped, afraid to leave their homes, constantly looking over their shoulders on the way to work, and cutting ties with loved ones out of fear they are putting them in danger. Years after the harassment may end, survivors are left with lingering anxiety, trauma and pain. In most extreme cases, stalking can escalate to acts of physical violence. It's a crime that thrives on control, leaving victims in a constant state of fear. And that's why I welcome measures by the government to bring forward changes to legislation to strengthen measures to combat this crime. I made a visit to the STAC, the Victims Centre in the Stratford Police Station a couple of weeks ago to see the work of the dedicated team which brings together the Met Police, Mental Health Services, the Probation Service and the Susie Lamplugh Trust and the CPS, all funded by MOPAC, and the work they were doing to help victims and to fight perpetrators is incredibly impressive. And I want to echo now the written submission from Claire Waxman, who's the London Victims Commissioner, who had some specific points on these clauses that I think could be worth just exploring a little bit. So we welcome Liberal Democrats the steps to allow the SPO at conviction or acquittal. However, again, we'd echo the concerns that police need clear instructions to pursue SPOs at an earlier stage and not only at the conclusion of court proceedings. When I was at the STAC, there was a general feeling that police and authorities were unaware of the measures, so more needs to be done to make sure that they are much more aware of these steps that are available and to apply for them earlier. At STAC, I also heard how it can take up to 6 weeks to obtain the evidence and get a hearing for an SPO to be implemented, which is just too long. So is there an opportunity for an SPN, a notice, to be able to be implemented straight away? Because under a DAPN, domestic abuse protection notice, can be implemented immediately, and then within 3 days an order can be obtained where there is a domestic abuse incident or where the offender is known to the victim. So there's a gap in situations where no domestic abuse is present, for which is about 3 in 10 victims are not known to the perpetrator. So can the Minister confirm how these delays for obtaining SPOs initially be resolved and brought forward so that they can be brought into force sooner? And is there an opportunity to bring forward steps to streamline SPOs and include a notice in the earlier stages of the order? I'd also like to take the opportunity, and I'm sure the Minister has heard this from me repeatedly, about the opportunity to create a single standalone stalking offence, and again that reflects and echoes the written evidence from Claire Waxman. Police understanding of stalking legislation and the offence in general is not good enough, so and at the same time the Section 4A offence becomes too high a bar to prove. The phrasing of serious alarm or distress is unhelpful, especially when often the victim isn't aware of the offending and of what's going on at the time. So I'd again take the opportunity to push the Minister bring forward those measures as called for by Claire Waxman to create a single offence of stalking. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll start at the end and work backwards with the questions. It's a delight to hear everybody mentioning the Susie Lamplugh Trust as who are a brilliant and amazing organisation who I have had the pleasure to work with for many years and had the special pleasure since becoming a minister of working very, very closely with them on how we come out of the super complaint with the recommendations and improve the situation all round. I said the exact same thing about Claire Waxman, who is both my friend and colleague. And to the point around legislation, part of the super complaint was that a need for to look specifically at the different specific offences, and I don't disagree at all that the bar can be too high or confusing, the two different sorts of offences, and so that is currently, the legislation is currently under review, as was recommended by by Claire Waxman and others in the coalition. The super complaint showed that when used properly, SPOs are considered an extremely valuable tool in protecting victims of stalking. But it also identified that not enough are being put in place, as has been identified here by other members, and that there isn't effective monitoring of the ones that are. There is clearly much more than this legislation. I sat through years of really well-written legislation, actually, and, you know, I don't have a lot of good things to say about the last 14 years, but the words that got written on goatskin were considerably better than the words that had existed before. And that's pointless if it doesn't change things on the actual ground. And the points, and I say this, and it is quite hard for me actually to sit here and have people talk to me about how traumatic it is to be a victim of stalking and the kind of things that happen that change your life forever. Because my life has changed immeasurably because of the stalking that I currently undertake. That happens to me all the time. And what I would say is that one of the main problems that I perceive with SPOs that I have had to try and get for other people is the court delays, which were exactly identified. Getting a DPN or now a domestic abuse protection order, which the Honourable Gentleman is in the lucky position of being one of the rare places in the country where his constituents can get them. Yeah, absolutely.
It's lucky that we have it, depressing that we're a location that has a higher rate of domestic abuse and felt necessary that it was required to go through with it. So again, very pleased to be part of the trial, but you know, we need to be doing more in Sutton and in South West London to address those issues.
I mean, absolutely. The Metropolitan Police using those particular areas, the particular 3 boroughs that they have used for the domestic abuse protection orders, undoubtedly was based on intelligence and also what best we can learn. And what we have seen with the domestic abuse protection orders is that you can get in and out of a courtroom within 24 hours. Now, that has absolutely not been the case with SPOs classically, and nor am I going to stand here and pretend that I can make that happen with all orders and make every order regime. What I am saying is that there is a standard and safety and risk has to be put in place. And so looking across the board following the super complaint about all of the things that rather than these clauses are a step in the right direction. Actually, how you change how things actually happen on the ground and give people the confidence to actually access them. And because if you try and get an order and you can't get it and it takes you start to think, what's the point? So, and also to the point of the Shadow Minister about breaches and whether people, you know, they're only as good as the breach that is allocated. Any order, and I know because I have them, is only as good as the breach. And when somebody breaches it, nothing happens to them. You don't bother reporting anymore, and you certainly don't bother trying to get another order, on acquittal or not. And so,
on that point,
yeah, go on.
And just to bobsled your argument, the 2024 London Stalking Review found that 45% of stalking victims felt compelled to abandon their pursuit of justice, to highlight exactly the point you make.
Exactly. So, actually, ensuring that it is that these decisions are proportionate is what we rely on our courts to do. And so making proportionate decisions on breaches and ensuring that our criminal justice system across the board is better trained. Now, speaking from the Home Office's perspective, again, I point back to this government finally investing in violence against women and girls and public protection and safeguarding specific policing unit for the entire country, one that has not existed. I always say, I want what counter-terrorism's got. Well, counter-terrorism has it. And let me tell you, the number of victims of violence against women and girls dwarfs by a country mile the number of people affected by terrorism in our country, and yet standardised training to ensure that where the legislation might be complicated, the police forces can get it forward, even if where the legislation weren't changed, which obviously we are seeking to do, or in instances about how quickly police should be applying for things. These are all absolutely things that are going to take time and need training, and won't just rely on legislation to answer all of those questions.